Did you know that the most dangerous job in America is the president, with a death rate of around 18%? Why is that important, I hear you asking? It isn't. But do you know what is important? Me continuing my journey of being a psychopath in Deus Ex. I set off to continue investigating the bombing that killed a dozen people. On my way there, my friend Alex calls me and says that I should break into my boss's apartment in order to try and find dirt on him. I then have to make a choice. Do I continue trying to bring a bunch of murderers to justice, or do I commit a crime for no reason except a slight suspicion? I of course choose option 2. Once in Miller's apartment, I take all of his alcohol and find the secret back room. In there, I find his keycard, which can be used to listen to Miller's past video calls. Before I leave his apartment, I make sure that I didn't leave a trace. Do you guys think he'll notice his moved fridge? I go to meet up with Alex. It looks like she stood me up, but she can actually turn invisible. This would be a super useful power to have in real life. You could use it to rob banks and sneak into the women's bathroom. Get yourself out of sticky situations. Once I finish meeting with Alex, I set off to my job. Not to actually work, of course. Instead, I plan to continue trying to find dirt on my boss while innocent people are being killed. I get into Miller's futuristic dentist chair. Once in there, I use the force and touch the Minecraft blocks. I then watch his video call. It turns out that Miller is in fact corrupt. I get out of the chair and set off to find Miller, hoping to blackmail him and decreasing my pay to $8.25 an hour. As I'm leaving, I bump into this lady. She asks me the totally legitimate question of what am I doing in here? I don't have a good answer, so I just deflect the question back to her. She actually has a pretty good reason. Sensing that I'm defeated, I leave and talk to this guy about the bombing. He's figured out that the bomb's timing mechanism is from a static watch. Now with a solid lead, I set off to find the bomb maker. While I'm making my way there, David Seraph calls me and tells me that I should go to a scientist's home since he could have answers about my mysterious augmentations. So I set off to do that. I do some parkour and make my way to his house. The scientist is dead. I make sure to show my respect by going through all of his belongings and giving his fridge to the homeless. With that good deed done, I went to Mr. Stanik's house. I searched his home and eventually found another secret room. How original. I watched his video and then some poisonous gas started flooding the room. I resist the urge to make a reference to another event where people were killed with gas and make my escape. I found Stanik being interrogated by these two agents. He tells me that it's his daughter who's behind the bombings, and not him. He was about as useful as a sack of potatoes, and he couldn't tell me where she was. With my investigation halted, I set off to meet with Alex's boss, Janus. I arrived at this building, and after jumping down an elevator shaft, Skype called Janus. He suggested that I break into a bank in order to get more information on Tallis Rucker's poisoning. Someone then cut off his internet, and a bunch of drones showed up. I ran past the drones, tripped some tripwires, and left the creepy basement. Once outside, Mr. Stanik called and said he had his daughter's location. After making sure that this woman was awake and hydrated, I set off there. I had to make a hard choice. Do I rob the bank, which would be a really good conversation starter, or go after Allison, the bomb maker? I chose to go after Allison, since no one would be killing her, except for me. After meeting Mr. Stanik, I started making my way to Allison. Alex called and said that I should go to the bank, so I started making my way to Allison even quicker. I got a few stealth kills in before I was inevitably caught, thankfully not down bad in 4K. I fought my way through the cult guards who were even more useless than the toilets in the jewel room. I then barged into this room and found Allison, who made blobfish look like supermodels. I used my charisma and internet debate skills to convince her that her ideas were wrong and that mine were right. She gave me a cell phone that I could use to defuse bombs, and she was arrested. With my target out of reach, I went and met with Kohler. He talked to me about irrelevant stuff like his feelings and his personal life. He installed the fancy device I got last video on me, and I left his murder shrine. My coworker then called and said that there was a murder near my apartment. So, I went there to investigate. Using my medical expertise that comes from 30 minutes of YouTube, I can indeed say that she is dead. You can tell from the amount of blood and the lack of legs. Once I finished there, I went and met with Miller, who was, as per usual, unhappy with me. He ordered me to go to the GARM research facility with the strict orders to not engage. So I went to the facility and almost immediately got engaged by Victor and his gold-masked goons. He gave me a flu shot after dragging me through the facility, tossed me in the snow. They thought that I was dead, but little did they know that I had a special augmentation called being the main character and was actually very much alive. I was then given a choice to call Alex or Miller for an extraction. Alex was my friend and has been loyal to me since the beginning. Miller was kind of a douche and also corrupt. So I called Miller since we had more in common. I started making my way to a helipad where my Uber would pick me up. I made my way inside, and after operating heavy machinery without proper certification and stabbing this guy, I snuck past some guards into this room. Using my high and fast regenerating HP, I brute forced my way through these electric traps into this storage closet. Using stealth, the Among Us vents, and a little bit of running, I got through that room, but my escape was blocked by some more guards, who were a lot more competent than the cultist guards. Luckily for me, they still fell when shot enough times. I got to the helipad and left GARM. I went back to Prague, but I guess I heard I was coming back, and martial law was declared. After watching this guy get shot, I did a cool jump and met up with Alex. I gave her the flu shot canister to be analyzed and snuck my way to work. I talked to Miller, who wanted me to investigate the Diwali theater, owned and operated by the Diwalis. So I set off to the theater. Along the way, I found this guy being interrogated by some police. I hastened his inevitable death by shooting him with my pistol and resumed my trek to the theater. After tasering a police officer and stabbing another from afar, I found this locked door. I was a bit stumped on what to do, but as George Washington once said, when there's a will, there's a way. I went through some toxic gas and some more tripwires and finally arrived at the theater. Once inside, I hacked his computer and decided to prank the Diwalis by turning on friendly fire on their robots. Once I finished with my harmless prank, I made my way through the theater and eavesdropped on this conversation. Victor and his friends were going to be attacking a big convention that was happening in London. This was a serious threat. If he succeeded, he would be taking a ton of kills that could be mine. I told Miller about this, and he said to go to my house and wait for him to call me. So after a very high jump and a lonely walk, I started back to my house. Up to this point, I've been 100% stealthy. And then I wasn't anymore. I ran past the police, and after 2 innocent civilians died from an unknown cause, I got to my apartment. Turns out, Alex had decided to invite herself over, and she forced me to have a conversation with her. Once that nightmare was over with, I started making my way to Chicane, in order to go to London. It turns out that the police officers were still upset with me for killing their friends. Way to hold a grudge, am I right? A short shootout occurs, which I, of course, win because I'm just better. I get to Chicane, and we fly off to London. Me and Miller meet with this old man, and after I argue with him and show him none of the respect he deserves, which isn't a lot since he isn't me, I go off to meet with the head of security. Along the way, I get stopped by the security officer. It turns out, him and the rest of security are actually all a part of Victor's crew, and they open fire on me. This would have been an easy win for me, had it not been for this killer robot and my impeccable grenade throwing skills. On my second attempt, I reenact the prank I pulled on the Diwalis and flip a switch that will allow the other strike teams to proceed. The rest of the gold-masked soldiers are in the catering area, so that's where Miller ordered me, with the orders to be discreet. So after I finished what the robot started, I went to the reception area. Miller's instructions of be discreet echoed in the back of my head. Do you know what else echoed in the back of my head? The sound of gunshots from me not being discreet. Victor called me up and said that if I didn't come 1v1 him trick shots only, he would blow up a building that would kill not just the men, but the women and the children as well. Seeing that a lot of kills could potentially get stolen from me, I raced off to Victor. Once I got to him, he said what my girlfriend tells me a lot.
Why have you not come?
I'm kidding, of course, as if any girl would want me. We dueled for a bit, and despite his fancy gadgets, I prevailed. With that thorn now officially out of my side, I once again started going back to the catering area. When I got there, I found a dying Miller. He told me how I was a good man, and then he died in my arms. I would cherish this moment forever. The VIPs were still in danger, so I gassed the gold-masked men, am I allowed to say that? And saved them by telling them not to drink the champagne and to save it for me instead. With the terrorist attack thwarted, and not a single kill that's rightfully mine taken from me, I went back to my apartment to enjoy the victory. But I was unable to, since Alex was still here. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really enjoyed making it, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you did, leave a like to show your support. And if you like my content, you should subscribe, so you always see when I upload. Thank you again for watching, and God bless.